Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hey, everybody. It is your good friend, Dr. David Perrodin from down here in the historic North Star recording studio. Wishing you well this day after Christmas here, December 26, 2022. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope you had a great Christmas. I had to reset the saturation levels here on the camera. I was going in between some programs and I didn't realize, but it was the white balance got way off again today. So I did a university lecture and I was going and editing it, and in post-production, there wasn't much I could do. Not that big of a deal, but I was like, well, what's going on here? And I went in and somehow my everything that I had kind of calibrated before got reset to the baseline. So I have adjusted it somewhat. I think it's okay, but yeah, I might have to tweak it a little bit. But if you think it looks okay, everybody out there, if you think it looks all right, Vanessa, Sunflowers, and Jim, then we'll go with it. So, yeah, we are done with the severe weather. So, as far as like the blizzard, I mean, the roads were definitely snowed over here and high winds. But that did by yesterday, that was pretty much gone. It's still really cold, but now today, 17 degrees, tomorrow in the 20s, be in the 40s here in a couple days. So, yeah. And then we're into January and, the chances of getting these big storms starts to diminish. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad we got through that. Burned a lot of firewood and still burning a lot today, but yeah, had a good Christmas. So, again, Jim, Sunflowers, Vanessa, Solitude, All Pro Lemonton saying hello here. Sunflowers, Safety Doc. The blizzard in Illinois was supposed to was a flop. Yeah. So we, yeah, it didn't get as bad here. It was still bad, and where we had to restrict travel because I went in town to the grocery store, and the road down from us, which is one of the larger roads in town, was largely drifted kind of to one lane. But then, as of yesterday, things were pretty good, and the day before they were better. But we still had 25-mile-an-hour winds, and as we did some traveling yesterday for Christmas, drove past people's vehicles that were still in the ditch waiting to get towed out. So, video and audio good. Thank you, Vanessa. So, appreciate that. I really do like the kind of the new camera, the new mic, not so new anymore, but yeah, when I hop between programs, it must have done a reset on something. But so again, I was, just editing these university lectures today, which I edited down to like 7 minutes, but then I was like, holy smokes, that's on a different channel. So, my water supply partially had frozen, but not a big deal, Jim. So yeah, that would be bad. I can't imagine what that would be like to be dealing with frozen or busted pipes. So, Safety Doc, my public library, my workplace, decided not to. They will find them for me to check out. Oh my goodness, Sunflowers. It's hard to believe. But so they're going to find them. Oh my goodness. Well, you tried, so I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, all right. Vanessa bought them for her local library and donated them. Wow. Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate that. Yeah. The rain, my hope for popsicle freeze did not show up. The rain stopped before the temp dropped like a rock. It's Vanessa So, wow. Wow. Um, oh, I went, had an oil change. We got our vehicle a year ago and, our SUV. So headed into the dealership today, just, routine. And then, when I got there, the doors were open and it looked, there was ice all around the dealership. It was just really weird. And I went in and over Christmas, a pipe froze and broke in a wall. So the area, the salesperson area was all flooded out. The area, you know, I don't know, the waiting room, I guess is what you'd call it, was all flooded out. And apparently they had been working there for a few hours before I showed up and squeegeeing, pushing stuff out. The water was all turned off, but they were still able to work on the vehicle. That area was okay apparently, but um, yeah, just a mess, because it's like where the furniture and the cabinets and all that was all wet. So I'm like, oh my goodness. I could just tell there was this when you walked in there, and I was like, what happened? So, but I imagine, yeah, they didn't find it until the first person was probably there this morning. Wow. So this looks like a blue shirt. It's actually gray. So I don't know. Color saturation is still a little off. This is kind of a gray blue. Yeah, I don't I don't know. Like, well, not that big of a thing, but I had something quirky happen today. So I'm teaching a university class in spring that I've taught for many years, but that class is 100% online. And when I built the course and extensively kind of upgraded it this year, I went in today and was doing some last minute things because I had recorded these lectures, introduction video, and I had to link them all out. Everything was working fine. And I clicked one button and it's hide goes from hide class to show class. So if you show class, then your students, when they log in, it'll show up then, right? Okay, class is ready. I can go in and see what's happening. And the moment I click show, everything went blank on the screen. I've never had this happen before. And so I'm like, holy smokes, man, what just happened? And then I refreshed it, and then the only thing left on screen was the shell of the class, meaning like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and it was nothing populated. I mean, we're talking like 30 hours easily to build this class. Everything's gone. There's no backup because it's built in the system. So I'm like, holy smokes, I'd have no idea what happened. So I log out, shut down the computer, log back in, and like I said, I've done this for years. I never had this happen. And I was getting the same thing. So university shut down. There's nobody there. I was able to get a hold of the dean. Yes, the dean. I have a cell number, and I just said, "Hey, this happened, right? I'm pretty sure I didn't do it. Like it's showing up like everything that was put in there is gone. And the thing is, like, I don't know if the university system like backs up every night or every couple nights, but if people aren't going to be there, like this could this could be overwritten, right? If it's saved somewhere and it's just not showing up. So like I can't get a hold of anybody, right? Everything's shut down. Can you get a hold of somebody? So, I sent some images, right, of what was going on. Um, and so the dean was great and got things resolved. But that whole kind of spring course rollout thing has been a little quirky this year. And thankfully I went in and I checked and everything is back now. So but yeah, even my enrolled students were gone. So everything had been and there was no like recycle bin. And I'm like, well, I know I didn't delete it because I click the one setting would go in from view, hide to view. And but I'm like, oh my God. Um, and I'm just like, if I get news that I have to rebuild this class, because I mean, a lot of it I didn't save, because that's just not what you're doing when you're building in a system that is kind of saving itself, right? Um, but it was like trying to save something you have on a Google Drive, right? There should be redundancy, but anyway, it's back up and but I was pretty frazzled by that because just like that's the reason I work ahead on these things like over Thanksgiving break and progressively to get these things done where I have plenty of time in case there is a hitch. But then I turned it on, checked if I could view it from my phone and stuff like that, and then I could. But yeah, it was pretty chaotic. I was pretty stressed by that. But so it's all pro Lemonton saying, have you and other faculty been talking about that chat AI thing? Saw articles that it's a super smart AI that kids are using to write original college papers. I haven't. No. Um, yeah. A lot of the stuff that I do is in person, right? So we do in person case studies. The final exam is a 20-minute phone call with me. And, you have outline of points, but I'm the one that asks the questions. Um, so, and I don't, for my student, yeah, I guess to some extent they could kind of do that, but it's usually like identify the different state agencies that have to do with education and whether you've interacted with them and what do they do. So I don't know if your AI is going to go do that versus you're just having to go to those sites. And I can see some people just go in and click like this site in the first paragraph and paste it in. And well, at least you've been there, I guess. Um, but yeah, I don't really have anything like what is your philosophy of education? Because I'm sure like a bot could pump that out. Um, and so yeah, like I built we talked about it, the Narcan vending machine. So I actually built one of the case studies on that topic of saying your school district wants to do this, right? And so you have to present to the board, or your district is considering this Narcan vending machine. What would be your positions like for or against? Which I suppose you can kind of look up, but I give some context for that. And then there's like a allergy case study that I have very specific profile of a student, but a lot of it is like the in-person case studies, like all my fall stuff. Most of it is all things that we do during class. Um, so, but no, you're right. I mean, I think there's AI blog posts. I had a couple of people contact me and say, if you could streamline your blog post task load of putting that in and having an AI system write that. I'm like, I suppose I could, but I won't. And I don't think it would turn out the same, or similar to what I'm trying to intend. But yeah, I mean, if you're especially a 100, 200 and you have to write, a paper on whatever, the Industrial Revolution or something, it's like, how much of that is authentic, these days, versus AI come in or I don't know, pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy stuff. So a number of sites process papers to see if they've been plagiarized. Yeah, the university has that feature available to us as faculty, and I don't need to use that. I don't really have anything that's going through that. Because again, I have assignments like go to your district website and find your pupil services non-discrimination policy, your Act 309 policies. So I'm like, they have to find that and they have to copy. And then when was it last updated, which is right on the policy, right? And what professional development did you receive specific to this, or did staff receive? So if you get an AI to work that out for you, you're in pretty good shape. So, but was there a virus? Not that I'm aware of. I don't think there was anything going on at the university. I don't know if this affected other people or not, but it was strange. I don't know what it was. I don't think there was anything widespread. Um, I honestly don't know. They'll get a hold of me. The tech people are going to look into it more because even though it's resolved and it's there now, and I do have the full backup of it, they're still saying it's strange. I had screenshots. I'm like, it actually wasn't here, right? I took a little video of like what I was seeing, screen capture. So, and so if it happened to me, right, it could happen to other people, or it could happen again. So that's where, but I have no indication think it was like a virus or anything like that. So um, I'm sure they'll figure out it. They'll just say we're not sure what it was, but we're we're all good. Holy smokes, that's crazy. Um, these are original papers through the plagiarism sites can't detect. Whoa. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine, the more and more time goes on, the harder and harder it's going to get to identify that. And as a faculty member, right, you're only going to have so much time and resources to put into it versus like feeding every paper through these plagiarism, or especially like at the high school level. So, ETH could really be abused in undergrad classes. Yes, I remember in my undergrad a lot of writing that was kind of like philosophical points, or poli sci type stuff or whatever it was that um, you know. So, wow. Um, Vanessa saying, if you do math topics, it would tend to be difficult. So, yep, yeah. Um, Most of the research papers one writes in college seems useless to me. Um, okay, I had uh, I had a number of papers and things that I wrote when I was probably you know freshman, sophomore, junior, which didn't it was a task, right? It didn't it didn't fill the cup, right? But when I got into like my doctoral program, that I was able to tailor that to stuff that I was using, so or would use. So, but yeah, a lot of the freshman and sophomore stuff didn't. I don't know, long time ago, long time ago. So yeah, I would hate to hear that too, Sunflowers. So I was so thankful when I logged back in. I shut the entire system off, logged out, logged back in, was checking for my phone. It still wasn't showing up. But then when I came back after like an hour or so, it was there. But there's also a quirky thing. There's a class that shouldn't be there. That's kind of a developmental class that I think they use when they're testing stuff out. And that showed up in my list of classes. That shouldn't be there. So that's where I do think there was some kind of reset in the system, but like I said, all's good now. So yeah, if anything, I guess usually I never save a class until it kicks off in case I'm adding things to it or adjusting it. And I've never had a problem with that. But in this case, I guess I would progressively save versions of it from now going forward. I don't know. It's kind of like that hard drive failure, right? Where I lost all the Safety Doc podcast. But usually at the university level, I'm thinking it's because I'm building their system, they've got the backups. But so Vanessa saying a favorite paper I wrote was about the hypercube of monkeys. It is about symmetrical rotations in 4 dimensions. Holy smokes. Wow. Wow. That is pretty wild. Have I ever had to bust students for plagiarism? I don't think so. I mean, again, the classes I'm teaching don't really the stuff that I assign doesn't really lend itself to that. What might happen is if somebody okay, like I have to make sure they're answering the question. So if I'm saying, talk about the state agencies that you work with, the different whatever, and your experiences working with them, or um, any experience with your district. So sometimes people just list them, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I know what these are, right? Or like a description. I'm like, my question to you is, did you know these existed before I brought these up? And have you gone to any conferences by these groups and whatever? So But that's usually kind of just not, I don't know if I'm not communicating the assignment well enough, but um, no, I don't. Um, I do. I usually keep things really current, right? So I just built a new case study over breaks. So it's, people go, oh, like you've got, Dr. P's class. Well, here's the 3 case studies that you'll do in class. But um, I change those based upon what's happening, like the new Senate bill from, Senator Tammy Baldwin about standing order from Narcan. So I just built out a case study on that. But so no, it's been one university I taught with. I had a couple students I had to fail for not doing their work, and I'd email people, and they would provide a phone number you could contact, and so that's the number you have to use. You can't like try to find people in other places, but if they have a contact number, you can call and say, "Hey, just a reminder, there's some stuff post due in class. If any questions, get a hold of me. Otherwise, expect it to be in, within 48 hours or something." I don't know. It's been a long time since that. And again, people I teach, they know what the expectations are, and they're not freshmen and sophomores, but Vanessa saying, I like to find the oldest resources I can cite in a paper. One paper I used a citation of 1400s circa manuscript. Wow. That really anchors it down. So that's cool. That's cool. Today we are talking about the bystander effect. And actually, I kind of I'd like this on this screen, but it's over here, which is easier because the arm is here. But then I have to kind of talk through the mic. So, but the bystander effect. So this was recommended by our good friend Andrew, and I like it. And I learned when I was doing this, I thought it would be pretty obvious, but there was more to it and a couple takeaways. So this is something I'm going to incorporate when I talk about school safety, discretion, and decision making. But the title of today's show, this is actually Safety Doc Podcast 200. Yes, folks, we made it. And because we made it, we have to do this. 200th show. It's the 200th show. Yeah. Which, so 200 as far as video, audio, and a blog post. If I took every blog post and put it in a book, it would be 700 pages long. Think about that. But yeah, so it is a little bit of a celebration here. I remember when I got to like 150 shows and kind of looking up at, would I get to 200? And then to be there, I think it's a really meaningful milestone to get to 200 episodes in a show, right? So I'm glad that I'm there. Thank you, everybody, for helping, be a part of that. But yes, I'm at today is show 200. So bystander effect. Why are we unwilling to help when others are watching? Bystander effect. So I'm going to read the intro they put together here, right? So you can check this. Actually, I have a couple citations here, but I actually have sources down in my blog post here and in the description. So it's counterintuitive, but research findings indicate that someone in need is more likely to receive help when one person is present compared to when several people are standing by. That's right. You are less inclined to help another person in trouble if you are in a group. But wouldn't the group be more capable and powerful to help than any single individual of the group? So kind of like the conjunction fallacy, right? Like the group itself can't have more skills than one person. One person in the group can't have more skills than the group because they would already be in the group and they'd have that skill set. So Most of us have seen inspiring videos of strangers locking arms to create a human chain in order to rescue a victim struggling in a swollen river. Anecdotally, we might be more willing to collectively intervene to counter a force of nature. That river won't hire a lawyer and sue us. In this episode, Doc defines a bystander effect, identifies the three types of bystander effect, provides reasons for the bystander effect, and concludes with ways to overcome the bystander effect. So right there, the bystander effect is a bad thing. So, so what is it? So psychologists Bibb Latane and John Darley identified a pattern of behavior they called the bystander effect, which they demonstrated in their labs for the first time in 1968. I'm pretty sure it was there before 1968, but from a research perspective, this is kind of where things began with Latane and Darley back in 68. They describe it as a behavior that occurs when the presence of others discourages an individual from intervening in an emergency situation. Latine and Darley were spurred to their studies by a 1964 murder of Kitty Genovese in New York City, a case that became infamous because of observers' inaction. Genovese, age 28, was returning from her job as a manager of a bar when she was brutally attacked and murdered near her residence in Queens, New York. 38 eyewitnesses stood by as she was stabbed and killed. None of them called police. So again, that's 1964. So this was what inspired Latane and Darley to more formally study this. So again, the bystander effect of saying, if somebody needs help, right, and they're like, I need help, you're the only person there, it's more likely you're going to help than if you're there with 10 other people. It's less likely you or any of the other people there are going to help out. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it just means the bigger the group, it's inverse. The bigger the group, the less likely they are to help out like one person. Now, again, people, stop at a scene of an accident and somebody runs out and does something. We're going to get into that because that is part of what kind of short circuits this whole bystander effect. But yeah, so what does it mean in school safety, right? If you have a group of responders, I think it's like who's going to enter the building, right? Like who's under whose jurisdiction, and so those types of things start to come into play. But yeah, the bystander effect again. If there's a lot, and you look at this and you'd say, oh, collectively though, the group has a lot of power. Like there's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of strength, there's just different skills, different tools that they could use, but they don't. They pull out their phone and then they just watch as you're in your demise, right? So so there are three types of bystander effect. Oh my God, did I do? I think I did. I've got to find those. I did overlays for this for the blog post. So let me find them in the folder here. Dun, 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 dun. Where is the folder? Here it is. Dun, dun, dun. Did it sync across? I'm pretty sure it did. What? All right. Maybe it didn't sync across. Let's see here. I got another place where that could be. Dun, dun. Yep, I got it. Okay. So here we go. Let's do this screen share. Share screen. There it is, bystander effect. So this will also be in the blog post. The definition: behavior that occurs when the presence of others discourages an individual from intervening in an emergency. So pretty counterintuitive, right? You would think the more people you'd have, the more someone within that group would be able to, or that collectively a few people to contribute, the knowledge base will be greater, the number of tools, equipment that could be brought into it would make more sense. The reluctance behavior is also present with static surveillance. This was something I learned. So if people felt they were going to be on video camera, so again, you weren't worrying about this, really 50 years ago, right? For all practical purposes, but now, this is creeping its way in, right? Oh, I'm going to help. Here's a car accident, right? Or there was someone on a bike who hit a bollard, right? And they're down on the ground. But now if I go to help, like there's other people who are going to be recording this probably, or there's a Ring doorbell that's going to see this, or there's surveillance at a pizza place, or block away. But if people feel that they're being statically observed, right, through this camera system, they're going to be less likely to help out. So it has a similar impact as if they're in a group of 20 people or a group of 100 people, or if they're there alone, but they, can identify, oh, there's the camera, or there's somebody standing 40 feet away and they have a camera, like they're pointing at me. So this is interesting. How the static surveillance is, and I think part of this is, we don't cover this in like Good Samaritan, right? Because I think people, I know people have questions, right, where they'll say, I didn't know, like, what if I help out, right? And there's video, and then the video is used to show that I did something that was technically wrong, like how I moved somebody. But again, I'm looking at this and, so just crazy. So we'll get out of that. Yeah. Let me get this. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. So there are 3 types of bystander effect. The first, so do I have a slide for this? Gosh, I do. Look at that. So I got a slide for this one too. 3 types of bystander effect. The first is diffusion of responsibility. So, okay, somebody, George Bailey's brother, right, fell through the ice, and I'm here with 100 people, and none of us are going out there to try to help him. Then, I'm 1/100th responsible, is how they, shed that urgency to act, the diffusion of responsibility. And then if they think, well, like, look at some of the people around here, like they look like they're in, they're either more physically fit to rescue, or look at that person, like they're wearing a uniform, like they should be able to jump in. Look at me, I'm just a typical citizen here. But this diffusion of responsibility. So again, think of it, 100 people, and this person's like, well, I'm 1% responsible for the outcome on this. If it add 99%, amortized across everybody else, spread across everybody else. The second thing is the fear of being judged. And so this has been there, in the last 50 years. These are the 3 types: diffusion of responsibility, fear of being judged. And so again, when this first came out, it was, maybe the people who are standing there, well, they don't have a camera, they don't have a video camera. There's likely only going to be, maybe some testimony that they might give to a responder or officer or something. Well, what happened here? Well, this person, fell down the stairs and whatever, and they weren't moving. And then this person came over and was trying to check their pulse and breathing, I guess, whatever it was. But, and so, it's the fear of being judged. This is amplified significantly right now, right? Because you have all of this forensic information, which is in the form of the videos taken. So, you could be rendering first aid to somebody, and there could, be 50 different videos of it from 50 different angles, right? And so, there's going to be this potential to be hyper analyzed, especially if there's anything of a lawsuit that comes in. So the fear of being judged. Number 3 is pluralistic ignorance. And I had to dig deeper into this one. I didn't quite understand the intent at first. But so, in other words, an individual mistakenly believes that everyone else disagrees with them when in reality most share their opinion. So what this means is, let's say, again, this person, falls through the ice. All right. And, I'm standing there along shore with other people, and I think, well, we can get, like, if we can get 4 or 5 people and do like a human chain, we can get out there and pull this person in. Right. But then I'm looking around saying, I'm the only one that thinks this. No one else is thinking this. Like, everyone thinks this is way too dangerous. They must know something I don't know. They believe there's a 75-foot drop off, like 5 feet from shore. I mean, or there's whatever it is, like, that they have. Someone else, they call responders. Responders are 2 minutes away. So you talk yourself out of taking action because you think you should take action, right? You think, oh, I could do this. Like, I could maneuver this. It would still be pretty safe. But then you're like, well, these other people must think this is a crazy, what I'm thinking is crazy, because otherwise we'd be doing this. But actually, like, everyone, and not everyone, but there are a lot of people are thinking just what you are. Like, well, let's just make a human chain and get out there, and bring this person back in. So that's this pluralistic ignorance. It's when it's better to maybe just talk out loud than of what you think should be done, instead of it's kind of like the Socratic method, talking to yourself, but like, so other people, like, what should we do? What are I think we should do this. I don't know. Would other people just still like be like, well, then you do that? But it is strange. But it's the psychology. So diffusion response. So they're very different. First, I thought they were, more similar, number 1 and number 3. Number 1 is there's 100 people and you're like, well, I'm 1 out of 100. If I'm not going to help and something bad happens, I'm 1/100th responsible. Number 2 is fear of being judged. And boy, is that escalating with cameras, right? And already, if it's a state of static surveillance, that there's a camera up in the corner or something, you're much less likely to intervene in an emergency. Even if it's just you and the other person, if there's a camera up there, you're much less likely to. Pluralistic ignorance is when they're just psychologically kind of going through it, and you basically talk yourself out of helping because you think there's a clear path. You think this could be done. Or right, someone could grab the AED, check airway, breathing, circulation, someone should whatever. But then you're like, well, maybe that person, it's an opioid overdose, or maybe there was fentanyl, and people maybe some people know that here. So that's why they're staying away. They're keeping a distance. So, and you're like, but again, like, if you were to individually ask people, they would say, no, I thought I should have gone over and checked. But then I'm guessing, other people because other people weren't doing it, it kind of makes you stand out. Like, what do they know that I don't know? What am I missing? Maybe I'm not thoroughly thinking this through. So, so as we look at this, a couple things is that diffusion of responsibility. Um, you just got to get, if you're going to act, like, you just got to get beyond that fear of being judged. Unfortunately, that's the way things are. This is where, again, time and time again, I harp on the Good Samaritan law at a state level. There needs to be more done at the state levels. I would say Good Samaritan Week, or First Aid and Good Samaritan Month, to educate people about that. Pluralistic ignorance is people have tacit knowledge, right? We have a good sense for what we can do safely and what we can't. So in most situations, your tacit knowledge is going to be right on the nose. So that's where pluralistic ignorance are thinking, well, the group here knows better than I do. They're keeping out of it. So who am I to intervene? That's, you got to get beyond that. So what I also found fascinating is today, this is the first time I formally studied this. This is the first time I have ever, we've talked about it in a podcast. So, with my career in safety and my career as a university professor, aspiring school leaders and stuff, we never talked about this. Nobody ever talked about this in any of the classes I had. And well, thank you for the 13 thumbs up. Nobody talked about this in any of the classes that I had. I never talked about this before, but it really comes into play. There are case studies that we go through, like the wandering child with autism in the woods, and we talked about the law of necessity, and that's part of it, right? But also diffusion of responsibilities at play there, fear of being judged, pluralistic ignorance, right? Well, who am I? I'm just a second grade teacher to conduct like a search. Like, we should wait for the search people, to show up, even though that's 40 minutes, down the road or something like that. So, but I think when you talk about these things and actually do professional development, I would have loved to have done a breakout session at start of year professional development, or anytime, but just on these things. And then also say discretion and best interest, right? So, when does your discretion kick in, and acting in the best interest, and then also understanding, like, this type of thing affects, and how might you see that, whether it's something to do with school safety, could be right, smoke, it could be somebody's injured, or whatever. We could just go down in it, but this whole thing of bystander effect and talking about it, and then also talking about it with students, probably into middle and high school. I think this would be a fascinating kind of. They have these smaller units, I forget what they're called, where they go through in homeroom. They do like a 10-minute unit. It's usually to build rapport, like with a staff member, and it's kind of school connected and stuff. But this would be great to do during one of those, to ask students, like, hey, yeah, you're out, playing baseball or something like that, and the field, over from you, somebody gets, bonked in the, face with a ball, and they're like passed out, and you're like, whoa, like, I should go over there and, see if they'll respond. I should, check in if there's any bleeding, right, that you need to put pressure on, and those types of things. Like, would you do it, or would you not do it? And what if there was a big crowd there? What if there wasn't? What if you started to help and people were, standing all around you, and you just looked and all you saw were the backs of phones, right? Everyone was recording you. But I think this is really important for people to understand this, because to me, it's a barrier to getting involved. And maybe there are times when it's not smart to get involved, right? Like, for example, there's a car accident. There's some cars on the interstate. They're still traffic going around, the weather's bad. I mean, we see these videos where even when squad cars are out with the lights and everything, a vehicle careens into them. So there are some instances, right? It's not going to be safe for you to introduce yourself into a scenario, but we're not really talking about that today. We're talking about a situation when, not necessarily there wouldn't be any risk to you, but the risk to you is, if your risk reward thing is going on, the risk to you is pretty low. So yeah, this is what we're talking about right here. Diffusion of responsibility, fear of being judged, pluralistic ignorance. I wish I would have, I'm going to incorporate this. If I do another PBS presentation, I'm going to dig into this deeper. I found additional studies, but I think this is fascinating. Because diffusion of responsibility, yeah, I guess I knew that. The fear of being judged and how that's amplified in the current age with cameras, and the fact that just if a camera is there, right? I hadn't really thought about that. And pluralistic ignorance of how people can just quickly talk themselves out of doing what needs to be done, because they're like, well, other people are here and they've already assessed this and they must have figured it's a bad idea to do whatever I'm going to do. Like, so, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty, and then I always kind of put this on its head, and I'm like, well, what if it was me? Like, what if I had been in a bike accident, right? And I'm lying on the road and hit my head and I'm unconscious, right? And, I would want people to evaluate whether they could safely do that. And if there's, 10, 20 people there, I would hope they're not all just filming it live to their YouTube channels and doing YouTube shorts and stuff like that on it. So let's go over to the chat and then we'll come back. So Andrew, all right, let's do Heath. I saw someone steal a kayak in front of everyone in the store. They walked in, grabbed the boat off the rack, and walked out with it, and everyone didn't know what to do. That's wild, right? And in that case, right, it's property, you don't own it, but that's wild. I had a friend who, when he was going to college, he was working at a Shopko, and he said, there were times it'd be kind of organized. I mean, this was back 30 years ago. The shoplifters would come in and, quickly take a TV and just, exit with it. Right. So, and yeah, but you're right. Like, what do you do in that case? 2 ambulances and 4 medics were not enough. It's Vanessa. Working Kmart in the 80s, we regularly had people wander the store with a cart, fill it up, and then just push out the front door. Although amazingly, they thought no one was watching. And the thing today, right, is like there's no prosecution. And then if it does, the person is taken into custody. Your district attorney isn't going to press charges in a lot of these cases. And it's happening close to us too. So, yeah. Do you know how to render first aid to folks in your own home or to yourself so you can get them help? That's Vanessa. It's a great point, Vanessa. I go back to when I had Lisa Lenny on the show, attorney Lisa Lenny, and when we were talking about the law of necessity, she was bringing that to, we really need to teach people about first aid, and then from that roll in the Good Samaritan, right? And from that, the law of necessity and things like this. But that should all be together. It's very like, you get it. And like, Bacon and Heath, like, you guys get it, right? But it's really strange that isn't some package deal of first aid, CPR, and, Good Samaritan. And then this whole thing too of just some section in the pamphlet of, they're going through their workbook of the psychological thing. But I bet people are afraid to talk about the bystander effect, because then what if someone intervenes and it was a time when they obviously shouldn't have intervened? There's down power wires, right? And they're trying to hop between them to get to somebody, and they get electrocuted and die. And then they're like, well, here, so anytime you have to leave it to somebody's, discretion and best interest and their skills, how they've been trained, how they're physically able to do things. That's where people really are going to get iffy. But I've seen I've seen very specific training, like in schools, they have what's called seclusion and restraint training, which is very detailed, and that can, obviously spark some controversy. But I don't know. States have Good Samaritan on the law. I think they need to be very overt. They need to be providing first aid. We need to be doing this for free. I was talking to some yesterday at Christmas. I was talking, and I was saying, you know what, the app to find lost people, the government app from Homeland Security, is like $8, and now it's like a private company. And I don't have anything against a private company. It's the fact that it was developed by Homeland Security. Then Homeland Security, the budget should have just perpetually funded, right? They should have said to whatever, we'll pay you so much a download, or we'll buy it and then like contract with you to do periodic updates, and then it's like free. So it's just crazy. It's crazy. What do we spend? All this money gets allocated to other things. And so, yeah. Vanessa, sister-in-law fell from a vehicle. She blacked out, smacked her head on the driveway. I was out there with doggy. Holy smokes. So there's a situation, right? One person shows up, probability that they're going to intervene. 10 people are there, 20 people, it goes down. Bacon, my reasoning for not helping people out. Yeah, that's right. You have to weigh. You have to look into that, and that's where, especially now with fentanyl, that's almost like a show title, right? Has fentanyl killed the Good Samaritan? Actually, that wouldn't be a bad. I'd have to interview somebody about that, though. I have to find like a EMT or something to do that. If you know an EMT who wants to be on the show, let me know. I think that has fentanyl killed the Good Samaritan. And not just fentanyl, but just, you're right. I remember when I interviewed Kevin Sullivan on my show and for my book. He's a physician's assistant, had been in the Iraq War, but he sent me some photos. I don't know if I used them in the blog post or not. I don't think I did, but he pulled somebody from a burning vehicle, and this was like in the States, right? 10 years ago. And when he got this guy out of the vehicle, the guy like kind of came to, and he started to fight Kevin. So Kevin is like still trying to get him out of the vehicle because the vehicle's on fire, and this guy's just like flailing and trying to hit at him. And I don't know if the guy was like confused, didn't know what happened, and they thought he was being dragged out of his car, maybe just passed out. But so, man, these are it's crazy stuff, though, but nobody ever talks about these things. And I think with contemporary first aid, this stuff needs to come in on a little bit of a psychological background. And then also, hey, if you're in a group, it's less likely someone's going to go run and grab the AED. So we just know that, even though it doesn't make any sense, right? Kmart paid you in cash. Holy smokes. Now that is a deal. Heath is saying it's hard to dress your own hand. Yes. Bacon, don't help them because they voted for it. That is Andrew. Yes, some injuries and traumas to yourself you can't do anything about. You might not even be able to ask for help or anything. Right. I mean, absolutely, Vanessa. You have to have a keen ability to do risk and reward. And if you're like, I I can't get over there, right? I can't make it. I can't contribute directly. I can call somebody, but that's another part. Even like calling somebody. Remember, we went back to 1964 and the murder of the young lady in New York, and 38 observers, but no one called the police. So yeah, are you trying to get the rescuers there? Are you up by the road so when the rescuers show up, you can direct them down or to the area where this person is? I don't know. But these are things we don't cover. We don't cover this in the school. We don't see it really on the FEMA sites for different self-study safety stuff. Like the ICS is a course. We don't see a course kind of themed on this. I think the reason, though, again, is this becomes subjective, and I'm sure the legal folks somewhere are like, well, if you tell people to use their judgment and they make the wrong call, right? Yeah, you've just kind of said that. I don't agree with that. That's where I think the Good Samaritan law comes into place. I mean, but yeah. This is Vanessa. You end up laying on the blacktop watching to see those crowds starting rather than acting. Right on. Yeah. And now, not only that they now they're there and they're recording it. And it's not just that they're recording it, they're recording it and live streaming it. It becomes this event type thing. So it's crazy, right? Just it's not good. 93, a nurse was two vehicles back. She ran and asked people for car mats, etc. Why mats? Utah was already 115-degree air temp. Okay. Wow. It's Toy Town. I watched the old one vehicle see me in road and purposely got his vehicle to skid sideways to stop. If not for him, all the vehicles would have squished me. Wow. Yep. I live purposely to be the outlier from the bystander effect. This is Toy Town. I'm in a 1% motorcycle club, and to me, that's what the 1% means. But be the one to act when others won't. I'm glad you put that out there, Toy Town. The older I get and the more that I teach, my administrative leadership classes and the nuts and bolts of that stuff and the legal issues, I do express my positions. I didn't do that initially, be like, well, here's how I would handle it, right? Here's what I would do. I still set up a framework. I'm trying to the camera here. But I believe I would I believe I would participate to hopefully make things better. If that makes any sense whatsoever. So I'm glad you said that, because there's a point I'm going to come back to with that. So Vanessa's saying we should be teaching first in first aid upwards from elementary school through college, right? Make it a part of. You're right. I completely agree. And so the question is, how do we address this from a policy standpoint? Where does this get into a $1.7 trillion omnibus bill? Oh yeah, that there'll be 1 million per state to, increase first aid trainers or something, which is ridiculous, right? But but it should be. It's so crazy, right? Like, why? How is this overlooked? I don't know. It just baffles me, right, that we don't have regularly, these first aid courses, or that every university or technical college has, if they're taking federal dollars, they have to offer free first aid every semester up to a certain number of people, right? And then they'll get reimbursed by the government and any materials and whatever, but the university needs to provide the facilities. And Like, how is that just not a thing for first aid? Because that's the whole community, right? That's first aid, CPR, and then you go through Good Samaritan, you'd go through the bystander effect and things. But Vanessa, you've got the right argument, right? You've got the logic down. I gave my Garmin Glow GPS receiver on me riding my trike. So, yeah, GPS, you know where you're at, or people know where you're at, or something happens and they're like, "Where are you?" And you can boom, give them the exact coordinates, kind of like a what 3 words type of thing. So, yeah, it's Corey Lee Slater. Hey, Corey. Heath, I hear about cops being hospitalized from fentanyl. Yep. So I don't have anything authentic to share on that, any knowledge other than hearing it. But that would be, I'd be interested in that. And the other part has fentanyl killed the Good Samaritan? Like that, if I can get an EMT, anybody knows an EMT, because I mean, I'd like to get the observations. For example, if an EMT is say we go to a site, there's a lot of people there, or like someone has said, like I didn't go up and check their pulse or anything because I don't know, maybe they were doing drugs. I don't know. Like I was afraid to do that because I don't have gloves, or if they have fentanyl, or I get too close. So let's see. Just like allergic reactions, do you know the signs and symptoms to look for? So it's a really good point. So no, bacon. I appreciate your comments. So that's a good deal. Corey's saying the recruiters didn't get paid. Everyone, has a camera on their phone, right? So that goes to our second point of the forensic data. Like people think they're going to be judged, right? But I don't think it's a balance, right? Because I think there are people who are like, oh God, I'm going to be judged, so I'm not going to get involved. But there are other people who are like, this would be a great way to, this is a big event and I need to like get it on camera. Or they're just addicted to social media, right? They're just addicted to people watching their content or whatever. So even though someone they're injured right here, they're going to put it out there on a live stream because they might get 200,000 views. As crazy as it is, right? But it's just so strange. It's the pictures now they take of concerts. So somebody goes to see concert, Elton John or something, and you take a picture from the stage and you're looking out at cameras because people are not living the event, they're recording it so then they can experience it. It's really weird, right? So yeah. Even calling for help is a good thing, says it's Vanessa. So someone choking, what do you do? Yep, ever see someone choking? Yes. Yeah. Had to administer the Heimlich a couple times successfully. So, but right, we don't have a first aid Good Samaritan type month where things like the Heimlich maneuver, right? The Heimlich maneuver could be a government sponsored 20-second TikTok video. I'm not saying government should do TikTok, the YouTube short, but I'm saying like that's the concept, right? Is to make a series of these things or these commercials that, show up on your as ads, but you could actually kind of professionally do this. I mean, we had the Committee for National Morale back in World War II, but it's a good point. People talk about that. When's the last time anybody taught that? If you had to know that for work, even if you're in a restaurant. And when a restaurant wants you, right? If you work there and someone is choking, if they're to intervene, it's a good point. Corey is saying, my girlfriend's mom was choking and panicked. Her dad knew what to do. The first aid courses through the years are worthy of everyone's attention. So, yeah, absolutely. Corey's saying most people would rather not get their hands dirty. So, yeah, as we we're going in before, there are dun, 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 dun. It's our friend Corey Slater. All right, come on. Gotta clickety click. All right. So Corey, these are two things that'll be in the blog post. So we went through these, I think, before you got in here. Spell them. Oh, geez, I want to do that. So I just had two slides. One was defining the bystander effect, but this was the three types of bystander effect, and this dates back 50 years. So the fusion of responsibility, right? Oh, there's 100 people. Yeah, and I'm in a crowd of 100. Well, if something bad happens to a person, I'm 1/100th responsible, right? That's the thought of it. Or it might even be less because I'm older and these are younger people. They're more capable of going and doing this stuff or whatever. So really, it's like 1/200th or whatever. Number two is the fear of being judged, right? In the moment. Oh, like look, you're doing this wrong, or what are you trying to do? And not only that, it's the forensic ability, right? People whip out their camera, so suddenly there's 50 videos of you, trying to, pull somebody from a river or something like that, or administer after, somebody's had a bike accident or something like that, administer some first aid. So this whole aspect of all these cameras are on me, like, right? Everyone's going to look at this. Did I do it right? Did I do it right? What is right? What's wrong? I don't really know all of this. I'm not a doctor, right? Or I guess, even if you are a doctor, right? You could have someone scrutinize it and say, well, but you didn't use whatever. Well, I only had 3 sticks and, this available to me at the time. So, and then this other thing is pluralistic ignorance. And that's where you think, like you could get involved, you could do this, but other people probably are like, well, I'm not going to go over there because, right, there could be fentanyl, or there's a lot of people have already weighed the risk assessment of could this legally get dicey, or like, I don't want people, this looks like it was a gang related thing, 2 gangs. So now if I'm rendering aid, and I get identified, could that end up bringing harm to me or my family? So these are, you got it, Corey. But so there's like these 3 kind of areas this filters into. So, learning, training, practicing, all gel. Okay, got it. All help. Break through the bystander effect. Good. Lawyers kill the good Samaritan. Yeah, I've been kind of addicted to the short clips of Saul Goodman, Better Call Saul, from Breaking Bad. And I think the character is hilarious, but the concept though is, there's always been lawyers, but the lawyers kind of, yes, but also I think the states all have their own Good Samaritan laws. I haven't heard of one state. I did a lot of research on this. One state saying, here's a campaign we have to make people aware of our Good Samaritan law. I have never found that. And so why isn't that a thing? Like, the states come out, because it's on the books in every single state. So why don't they do that? Why don't they give some examples? But you're right. Right now, it's so litigious, and the fact that a fact finder or judge or district attorney, right, will just go with a video, and there could be a video taken, from 80 feet away, like over somebody's shoulder, and the person moving around a little bit, And I don't think it's so much a case here, but what if someone's saying, oh, like, you um in trying to help them, like that was really kind of a careless thing from this angle of what you did. They can't see that, you slipped on some, you know, loose dirt or something a little bit, but it didn't. But from the angle, it looked like, you're racing in and out of control. And um, so, just those types of things, right? You can look at anything. If you find the one angle, the one photo that doesn't provide a context. And I think that's been, people are terrified because somebody shows one video, um, and they're like, look at this. And you're like, okay, you shot this through a screen door with the screen on it from across the road while it was raining. And okay, I guess this is what it looks like. It looks like this person pushed this dumpster cart at the end of their driveway and hit someone else. But upon so then it makes the news, this angry person's out there, and upon further thing, it's just the water was coming down and it just swept this thing off, and the person was running out there to try to grab it before it took off because they saw one up the road. So all these things, right? um, the kids in elementary school here died on contact with drugs brought into school from a student. That's from Vanessa. And so that is what has me thinking a little bit. And I don't read about it, like I don't see it in articles, but are people really stepping off of the whole get involved and Good Samaritan and all that because of the increase in opioids, right? Um, and so I don't know. Um, I would think that is probably happening to some extent. So this video just blinked out over here for a minute. I don't know what's going on with that, but we're okay here. So years ago, while walking to Longhorn Steakhouse, this is Andrew, with my family, there was a lady who asked me if I could release the parking brake on her car. I paused and responded, "You want me to get into your car?" Her smile faded into a sad face. I said, "I don't want to be accused of something I didn't do." This was after the Kavanaugh Supreme Court case. Um, Me Too has done more for people not helping than the bystander effect has. It's from Andrew. So, Andrew, interesting. I don't know if you guys remember DT. DT was the Black Brigade, and DT lives in South Dakota. Was on Aaron Clary's show quite a bit. He lived in Minnesota. He's an engineer. Now he's in South Dakota, but he did a show on this maybe 2-3 years ago, and it was kind of similar to when the Kavanaugh hearing was happening. I think it was in that time frame, and he said there are times when, like, the engineering company would say, we're sending 2 engineers, right, to drive 3 hours to the site to do some assessment on something or whatever. And he said, DT was saying again in the show of, what if, now you're with somebody else. I mean, he was saying, if it was a female, um, do you say, I'll drive separately, I won't charge mileage because, right, you're in this scenario, or it just could be 2 people. Like, it's almost like you'd have to have a camera on inside of the car. I mean, because it could be, yeah, some claim, right, of whatever, or hostile, or hostile action, or whatever it was. And I think it's just because it's so much in the news that people feel they really have to measure their exposure to situations that could go that way, even if they're really, really minute. But I mean, it's really strange, right? I mean, like we we look back to A Wonderful Life, and the dancing and all of that. Like, well, just to that, it seems like that would be very prohibitive today because of accusations that could be made. But um, but So going back, Andrew's saying that the Kavanaugh Supreme Court hearing had was happened around the time when he had told this lady, "Hey, I'm not going to." You said, "I'm not going to." Let me do this, Andrew. You want me to get into your car to release the parking brake? And then she had the sad face. But this you're making the point here, Andrew. You're making the point that people have more to measure whether they're going to intervene or not, right? Or if someone's like, I need you to, come into the house because, right, somebody just passed out, or there's something else, they're choking or whatever, right? Like if someone opens up their door and yells, "There's somebody choking here," do you go into the house? So these are discussions we need to have as a society. We need to have these things, and we need to come out with so people can logically have some framework to deal through this. So I'm glad we're there. Let me go to, it's called the Pillivan subway study. And this was in 1969. This seems to be referenced a lot with Bystander, although I didn't think it gave a lot of super great information, but there are a few things out of here. So in 1969, researchers designed a study to investigate how a group of people would react if they saw a person who collapsed on a train. And here were some notable findings from the effects. Again, this is 1969. The public usually helped quickly and on their own. Nobody had to direct them. So there was an interesting part here. They're saying because it was on a train, like it'd be harder to get. You can't really just separate yourself from that. You're part of that train community. The train is moving and stuff. And it also, so their observations were people usually helped again in that setting, and they helped quickly. So that's a point. Quickly. The second thing, the second observation, the bigger observation, the longer no help was offered, the more likely it was that observers would leave the instant. So there's this golden window of if you're going to act or the group is going to act and do something, it has to be fast, right? Like if you make your assessment, right, and then in 30 seconds you're in action, or 15 seconds, or maybe even if it's a minute, like, hey, you go grab this is, okay, I'm going to do, you're going to call, and anyway, so I was looking more into that. And again, the quicker you act, the quicker you survey and make a decision, you can get a lot of people who go with you, right? Because they're sitting there in their own mind, right? And we talked about that pluralistic thinking, and they're thinking, I think I should be doing this, but other people probably have already thought about that. And maybe I'm missing something. But if you see somebody jumping into action, or like, one and two people, three people, and you're like, boom, now you start to become part of this group, right? You're like, oh, like they're already validating what I'm thinking. I'm thinking pretty much the same thing of what they're trying to do right here. So, and then you're also, so I think, but it's timing. You get beyond that minute mark, and it's just, and pretty soon people are like, I shouldn't even be here, right? If I'm not doing anything. And maybe there's some liability then if I stick around, or I don't want to be interviewed, or whatever it is, and they take off. So that was the other thing. And that comes back to safety in general and school safety, right? Is you have to understand the baseline, and you have to be able to pick up the change of baseline, and then you have to act. You have to make your decision. And maybe your decision is like, I can't get involved because it's too dangerous, but here's another way I can bring aid to this, whether it's calling 911, directing people, oh, the AED is over there, or someone is like, uh, underwater, right? At a beach or something, but you're like, oh, like right over there on the other side of the building is a buoy. So, someone can race over there and grab it. But um, so yeah. So again, the subway study from '69 was that you don't have to tell people what to do. Again, there's a high tacit knowledge for most things that happen, right? Somebody has a cut or, these types of things, like people understand. Or if they had one first aid course, they have enough residual memory from that. But I mean, it's just part of being a person, right? Or being, if you ever had an older, younger sibling, or, you're a parent and you had kids, like you just kind of know these things. There's experience there. So, but the second part was, if you act quickly, you can get others to act too. Others that probably should be acting, that have the capability and know what they're doing. The likelihood is greater they'll get involved. But if time you get to that kind of golden minute and people are there and they're not jumping in, it's unlikely. And then, per this study and some of the others I looked at too, I don't think it's so much today. I would argue that today people wouldn't leave. They would just maybe go to a further back position and hit a zoom on their camera. Like, um, I don't think they would necessarily leave, but there were other studies, probably done before the cell phone age, which said at some point people just, again, it's a situation where there's an emergency and there needs to be help rendered. Um, so, all right. Let's go over to the chat and then we're going to go to how to overcome the bystander effect. So, all right. Let's see here. Vanessa saying, we had firemen come to school to talk fires, etc., actually show the fire extinguishers and what and how to use and when not to use. So, yes, which would be great. Like, it should be a standard practice, and just even in buildings, right? And or someone who wants to use a fire extinguisher, it's like a part of this first aid class. Maybe there's a side part where you can use a fire extinguisher. People have them in their houses, they've never used them. You don't aim at the top of a fire because then it could mushroom it out the bottom. Always aim at the base. But have you actually practiced that? And now they've got where it's just kind of like LED like stuff, so it just identifies as you don't even have to light a fire. But if you're practicing the stuff, so yeah, DT is on Rumble. Name is Black Brigade. All right, so yeah, DT and the Black Brigade. So it was very intellectual. Appreciate DT. So Bacon saying, if optics on helping others is a problem, having a body cam on might help with that, as Joe Dolio says. It's a good point. It's really good. So, right, because you're not going to hold a camera in one hand as you're trying to put a splint on, somebody's arm, or do a tourniquet one-handed, right? Here, let me set my phone up on a tripod. So, but I'm saying, Bacon, what you're saying here is Joel Dolio would exactly say that, right? If you have a pen camera or something that's attached to your body, and it's kind of sad that we have to have that for our own forensic protection. You could argue it's to help give responders a better idea of the time that it passed, what was initially there that this person might have been exposed to, like, so they can kind of put together the pieces of care appropriately and the provenance of care. But that's a really good point, and that'd be something I would want addressed in like that first aid Good Samaritan month, right? I like that. So, yeah. So this is our good friend Bacon. So it's Bacon. Dun, 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 dun. It's bacon. So, all right. All right. I was referring to regular civvies. What do you mean? But first responders, like cops, usually have to well respond to things like this. We don't. So, yeah. By the way, I've punched my ticket to the School for the Blind in Wisconsin, the Super Bowl, the fantasy football Super Bowl. I have been in that league, I think, for 5 or 6 years. So I used to work there, and then they kept me in the league. Thankfully, when I left, because it's a great group of people. I won last year, and this year I'm 12-4, and I'm in a Super Bowl again. And if I win, back-to-back championships. So I think I've won 8 out of my last 9 games, and I have like a 200-point lead in the point standing. But it doesn't really mean anything now because I've got to win the next game. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of fun. If one takes command, more likely to fall in line. You're absolutely right with that, Corey. And that was, oh God, where was I? That was Dr. Paul Rapp, head of military medicine, when I wrote School of Heirs. And he almost said exactly what you're saying, that when that happens, right, other people are going to fall in line. Because if you look at that group, they largely know what to do. Even if like they can't be the person to help, they can be the person who's helping the person who's helping, right? Like, you grab this hose and like bring it over here. We're going to put this ladder out. So like hold on to it down here. Like that's your job. And then, but yeah, it's a really good point. Safety doc. One time at the library, staff was trained by the local fire department on how to use a fire extinguisher. Cool. Yeah. And I bet they appreciated it, right? And probably a lot of them were like, okay, there's things here, there's fire extinguishers, but we've never used one. And then I think there's a question too. I had it with my school administrators with AED. A couple staff would be like, yeah, I'm a little hesitant to use it because I understand, the AED is like $1,000, and it's more than that. I think it's like 1,800 in the battery. And once it's used, you have to do the chest pads, all stuff. It's a few $100s. Like, so, right. I mean, you have to be very explicit, because someone's like, do I have to pay for that? Or is there, what if they're like, it didn't need to happen, but I thought it did. So at least that's something. Like with Narcan, the generic naloxone's like $5 a dose, but using a fire extinguisher, right? Someone's saying, oh, do we have now, who has to refill it? How much does that cost? And I mean, people think through these things, and sometimes kind of go down this weird logic path. But yeah, right. So just fire, you always aim at the base. If you aim at the top, push it out. So keeping yourself, the exit, clearly, to your back, right? So fire's in front of you, you can retreat. You're not putting yourself in the fire between you and an exit. Those are just kind of common sense things, but to actually have some demonstration of holding a fire extinguisher and how to pull the pin and to activate it and use it right until it's all gone versus like, oh, just a little bit. And those are all valuable things. For some reason, I have never noticed the light changing behind your sign. Yeah, that is that's a gift. That sign is from C&T Designs Coupe. That's metal, 3D. So that sign comes out about 3 inches in different depths from the wall, and then he has the LED lights. And there's a cord actually comes down, but it's camouflaged in the seam. And there's a remote control that I have. I can change the patterns and stuff like that. So, and that arrived maybe about 6-7 weeks ago. Really cool. So, yeah, it's neat. When you're down here, like, then the side depth of it coming from the wall is like another cool effect. So practice with your home extinguishers as well, right? So yeah, have we ever, I don't want to say I haven't seen it. I haven't seen, like, we have our fire prevention month. You have fire department opens up every October, families come down, check out the equipment. It's really good, but you can get batteries for free for your smoke alarms, a whole bunch of 9 volts. They make them here in town. But on the other side, like, um, will they refill a fire extinguisher? Can a fire extinguisher, certain ones, be refilled, or do you have to throw them out? Like, that seems like that would be something that should be there during fire prevention. Yeah, bring in a fire extinguisher to get it refilled, but or even, like, if you're afraid, like, people are going to bring in all these fire extinguishers that they've used, and then, but at least I think have an area of demonstrating what that's like, and if you use a fire extinguisher, like a commercial one, how these get refilled, or if they're disposed. Like, I don't think people know that. So I would make a display that I would have out there for that. I don't know. It's crazy. It's our good friend Mike McClune. Hey, Mike. It's Mike McClune. Do you have the correct fire extinguishers at home? Right. So all these things wrap into that month. I don't know. It would seem like if you want to make sense out of this, you kind of put it all in October where fire prevention is. And you just kind of change that to fire prevention, first aid, good Samaritan. You have to have some slogan to put that all together, but it seems like that would make sense. And that logically kind of makes sense, because if you're in a colder region, you're into more risky, dangerous weather and driving. And when there's more fires during colder months because of heating units, like to have this again in October. But right, good point. Negative on the fire extinguisher, though there is one outside my door beside the oven. I got one just around the corner, and I got one upstairs, one out in the garage. Pretty big fire extinguishers too. So it's Toy Town. I saved my expired mini disposable truck fire extinguishers and have the kids practice once you're in a bonfire outside. Cool. That's a really good idea, right? Heath, I use fire extinguishers more in fight prevention and self-defense than to fight fires. But I mean, that's a fascinating part, right? That a fire extinguisher, might have that could be pressed into self-defense for somebody. I don't know. But I mean, that was the beanbag toss scheme we had has LED lights so we can use them when the sun goes down. It's Vanessa. Large commercial extinguishers, can you lift them? Some are hefty. That's a good point, right? Yeah. So people you absolutely right. Have people try to lift these. I trained people on using fire extinguishers, and so if they were heavy, it was always put it against your hip or put it on the ground, right? And then, but it would be, and again, in that situation, what if someone says, I have a back condition, or I don't have the strength to hold this, or to carry this, or what if they drop it? Could they be hurt? So Vanessa, that is a great point. Actually, that you brought this up, I love this, because I can see already an activity for a school. You have the fire extinguisher, and you have people, your staff, and you say, okay, I want you to write down how many pounds you think this weighs, right? And then they submit it, and then you plot it out and everything, and you're like, okay, it actually weighs 15 or 20 pounds, and you let them feel it, right? But people, then you have something that's a little heavier and something that's a little lighter. But you might have people, I don't know how that would go. I think it would be awesome though to try it. Some people are like, oh, like that fire extinguisher, 40 pounds. And so maybe the average is 30 and it's really 20, or maybe the average is 15 and it's really 30. I don't know. And then you pass it around, like everyone gets to actually feel that and feel the weight. I think it's a great idea, Vanessa. I mean, I'm thinking of schools, right? Schools have larger fire extinguishers, and I wow, I think that would be fascinating to have people take a guess on that and then give them some other things. That's a great activity. I'm going to use that, Vanessa. So it's really good. Both sides of my kitchen has a fire extinguisher. So, wow. This is our good friend, Uke. Howdy, y'all. I've been here for a while, but I've been on the phone with my cousin. So the volume has been down. How's everyone doing? How's everyone's Christmas? It's good. Doing good. So, it's warmed up here. So that's good. I say warm, it's like 20, but it'll be 40 in a couple days. Which, it was when it was below, 15 below zero, and then the steady winds, 30, 40 miles an hour. It was pretty crazy. But my front door held up really well. I re-insulated that this year, and I used some backing when I was doing some caulk between the concrete slab in the back on the porch, the old one, and the house. I did put some foam backing, but then I was using that same foam backing around, sealed up the door, and it turned out great. Like I put my hand, winds would be like 40 miles an hour. I put my hand on the side door and barely feel anything coming through. So I'm like, good deal. No frost, no nothing. So that was good stuff. So it's Uke. It's Uke. So Vanessa's saying the C5 hangar at Westover has emergency breathing apparatus at each hangar beam to get one on your face before the foam is too deep to see or push through. Wow. So that's fascinating. It is. All right. So let's go back to the next part of this. And that was how to overcome the bystander effect. So here's what I found, and after going through different studies and just kind of writing down, here's the themes. So many people experience, first of all, when people are present and they felt that they were capable of helping and that they should have helped in some capacity, but they did nothing. A lot of those folks feel regret, and they feel regret like for the rest of their life. Like this will be something, if I could go back and change. So it's a deep guilt, disapproval, the damaged self-esteem, negative emotional responses. So that was pretty redundant, and that was even coming more, currently in people in like stadium accidents where people rush the field and people are getting crushed, and someone, is like, if I would have stood there and jumped up and down and told people, I could have done that. I didn't. Or I saw somebody after they've been, trampled, and I didn't go down and do anything. I just stayed up. And so this seems to be pretty consistent throughout the research and the interviews of people. If they felt that they could have intervened in an emergency, that they could have lent help. And now when we're not talking like kind of like two people fighting or something like that, we're saying, but they feel this damaged kind of self-esteem. Well, I think part of that though is maybe everyone thinks like they would be the hero in retrospect, right? Like you jump in and you could have been the person to make the difference and save everything. And so I think that's the expectation you'd have if you went into it, right? That it's going to have this very positive outcome. So anyway, that's the first, is people do regret this and it lingers. And I don't know, I didn't find anything if that makes them more prone to help in the future, or if they just run because they don't want to be near that situation. To overcome the bystander effect, people must practice situational awareness, which we talk about a lot, knowing on what's happening around you. And by doing so, they get a feel for when things aren't going right. So that's the other part. If you have good situational awareness, you'll be like, whoa, like over here, like this person doesn't look good. Whatever the person's, like sugar, like insulin, or whoa, like you might have diabetic shock or something, whatever's going on. Situational awareness, right? Your own, uh, as Vanessa writes, mass foodborne illness outbreaks. Yes, someone, whoa, I'm not feeling well, or observing some other people not feeling well, it looks more than they're just like tired. And so understanding situational awareness when things have changed. Um, so people have a tacit ability of identifying when something is in fact an emergency. So most of us know an emergency, right? Most of us know, we can observe when it's happening, or if we're participating in that, like an emergency situation. So it's not like we have a hard time sensing that, but we can kind of hit our brain on override too. So again, the faster you can recognize it, you're probably going to respond. You're probably going to respond before there's a group of people, and you're more likely to render aid if it's you versus like a lot of people being there. But so another part is people have to feel responsible to take action. And even though the media sells us out on society being bad, and there's a lot of not good things happening, right? So you have to have this of saying, I want to try to fix this. I want to contribute to making this better. Possibly even save this person's life or people's lives. So it's a tough call. You have to put yourself possibly in harm's way. You might be able to dodge down live wires to carry someone from a wrecked car, right? You might be able to do that, but maybe you don't. That was Cajun Navy Relief. I remember Katie Pichon talking about, if when people go out in the boats and they're rescued and people, there are times when people get electrocuted, and it's rare, but it happens. So, you look at this and you're like, who's, who's, who's response, you feel responsible, but then, anyway, and the other thing is you can also always choose a form of assistance. So maybe you're the person who's going to stand up by the road. So when emergency responders come, you can point them to the direction. Maybe you're the person who's going to talk to somebody to kind of try to keep them calm or whatever. But you're the person that's going to, try to get some type of, go to different cars, see if anybody has a blanket or something like that to help this person. But and okay, so boom, we get in this situation of, if you act quickly, the group tends to fall in line, or the key members of the group. But once you get beyond a minute, now that's not a definite in this. Like, I didn't find studies exactly saying a minute. I kind of anecdotally saw some of that, and just through my safety stuff know that, like, for example, if there's the smoke alarm thing, like if you see smoke and you wait like a minute to try to activate it on your own, you're probably trying to find an administrator, someone to tell you it's okay, because you would have known to do that already. So yeah, bystander effect. Let's go over here to the chat. Doc came into room, and first thing he does is ask what I think is wrong. Wow, that's good, right? I already told staff anaphylactic shock was in progress. So he lied fire extinguishing ball. Wow. How much for a small fire extinguisher? I don't know. Doesn't this seem like something too, like if you buy one fire extinguisher a year, or once every 3 years, you can write off 100% of a fire extinguisher up to $25. Like, doesn't that seem like a reasonable tax thing, right? Um, I'm just kind of I'm going on. All right, let's do. I'm bringing up Home Depot, so we're checking out the. This is a good question. I don't know about the stuff. So kitty with some different fire extinguishers, dry chemical, one-time use, a 2-pack, $40. So not bad. I don't know how big these are. How big are they? Um, those aren't very big, but how like have a ruler next to this. Like, what is that? Is um anyway. Okay. This one looks a little bit bigger, dry chemical. So what's the 6-year warranty? Disposable. Okay. I think most of these type, like, yeah, you're not going to have any attempt to try to refill these. So okay. 2.35 pounds, not very heavy. One time use. How long would that last? Like, what could you reasonably tackle with that? So okay, that's $20. I don't know. Let's go back. Let's see if get a little. But I mean, doesn't it again seem some of these things a first aid kit, or you should have some that every person has some credit every 3 years of $50. It can either be first aid, a fire extinguisher, or you know, maybe just whatever. You got like into those categories, and then you know, um, it just seems like that makes sense. I know, right? Um, okay. Apparently, here's a rechargeable. So then the question is, who recharges this? Wood, paper, and fabrics. So flammable liquids, electrical equipment. So this one kind of looks like it's the whole gamut. Um, okay. So here, this one I'm guessing is a little bit heavier. I don't know what does it say? 5 pound. Yeah, that's a pretty good fire extinguisher. 13 to 15-second charge time, 10 to 15 feet. So, and that's $60. Yeah. Um, that's actually not a bad gift right there. So, um, hey, you can pick it up today. So, but anyway, it's a good question because I didn't know the answer. I didn't know if inflation had changed. I mean, that really crazy. Um, but yeah, what about it? Shouldn't we have a above the line tax thing for that? Just nuts, right? Um, all right. Heath is saying, the white ones in my car, the dry chem. Yeah. I don't have one in my car and I should. The other thing is like, I don't know what the temperature of Wisconsin does to a fire extinguisher. So if it's minus 25 outside, I'm assuming the it would decrease the pressure, right? Because the things would be less dense. You have more density, it would clump together. I don't know. I don't know how that works with a fire extinguisher. So again, something like that should be more commonly talked about. So yeah, but it's a good point. I got to let me see here. Um, does a fire extinguisher work that's kept in cold? All right. So yeah. So actually what I'm coming up with is saying fire extinguishers, I got 2 sites on this, can usually go as far as 40 below and still function. And then it's usually the hose or the valve that might fail, and not like the pressure doesn't, the cold doesn't significantly knock down the pressure apparently. Um, okay. It does say do not store a fire extinguisher in direct sunlight. So um, it's saying if you have a car, it's best to put it in the trunk. But where should you not store a fire extinguisher? Next to a heat source. Once they get above 120, I'm sure there's like a pressure relief where they would just, but I didn't. This is really good. I didn't know on the common fire extinguishers that like right, if it's 40 below, and it's been there, it's acclimated, like the thing has been in 40 below temperature, it would still discharge appropriately. I never really had thought about that parameter of things. I don't even think doing the firefighter courses that we specifically covered that, because I mean we weren't talking about residential stuff. It's a good point. Also look and check out these extinguishers each year. Make sure they don't look like they failed, lost pressure, right? And most of them have a needle. Ours do. Needle still says charged, and they still look like they're okay. But yeah. Some safety supplies and equipment stores can recharge the rechargeable types. Yep. So it'd be like where? So that would be kind of a good question on that. 2.5 pound are good for vehicles. 5 are good for around the house. ABC will cover most. Purple K covers metal fires. Yeah. So thanks, Mike. And like, I've even wondered, like electrical fire. Well, I mean, 2.5 isn't going to do much, but probably more for your own vehicle than if someone, is in a vehicle. But it's one of those things, right? Like, you're sure as heck going to be much happier and probably safer that you have it than if you don't have it. By the way, my Navy pea coat, which I was wearing when I was in the interstate accident 4 years ago, the shoulder's separating out, and my wife's going to sew it back. So just, I don't know, kind of just a weird thing right at the seam. So it's not like there's a tear, just the seam is separating. So old, it's really still great, but has to get a little attention. This is to me from Sunflowers. I once made the house all smoky because I burnt rice on the stove. There needs to be a safety plan for the house, but no one cares. A fire extinguisher might have helped. So Sunflowers, right? Whole month about just safety and fire extinguisher, and and what if could you run to a neighbor's with a fire extinguisher to try to put something out? I don't know when that would necessarily make sense, but I don't know. All right. I call the fire department after they finish. I call local junkyard to haul it away. It's Vanessa. This is Sunflowers to me. Have you ever used an automatic portable fire extinguisher ball? I have not. No. I saw someone post that before. So the glass grenades. So no, I've never done that. I think you guys are posting this Elder Fire. So Elder Fire is based on a revolutionary technology that provides far better advanced solution than portable fire extinguishers. So yeah, I guess let's watch how it works. Let's watch a little bit about it here. If we're not going to have audio, but okay, I guess we can see what this dude's going to do here. So he throws it, and So yeah. Whoa. Then I guess it explodes and there's some kind of way that's taking the action away. This guy's like, listen, just get it. It's a good thing. It looks like Derek Jeter. So look at these guys. They're like, holy smokes. Okay. I hadn't heard about those. So tactical tannerite. Wow. This is Vanessa. Fire in town one winter had the water. They were spraying freezing all over. So, wow. Safety for the fire folks, and the water makes everything all icy during a call. Yeah. Andrew, those are niche items. Won't work in small fires like stovetop fires. So it's John Rice. Look at John Rice. There he is, John Rice. So this is Joe Morris. About 10 years ago, my brother was successfully house sitting for my folks and had a kitchen grease fire. He went to the sink with a pan and caught the curtains and cabinets ablaze. Wow. So, okay. So yeah, people don't think about that. Cover up, right? Smother the action source, get a lid, cover it up. So it is our friend Mike McClune. Class D is for metals. K is for flammable liquids. You will see class K in kitchen for fire suppression in kitchens. So thanks for that, Mike. Good deal. $30 each or $120 for 6. So yeah, those things, I mean, they're not cost prohibitive, right? So I go back to what I said a couple of minutes ago. We should all get an above the line deduction for $50 every 3 years or whatever for either a fire extinguisher or, splint or, whatever first aid kit or whatever you're doing. So, man, it's crazy. So, by the way, I want to thank everybody, your generosity, and you're watching the ads, right? And the shows, sharing the shows. The show did reach its monetization threshold per YouTube, so I will get a payout in December at the end of next week. And then, so for 2022, the show hit the threshold for a payment, which is just cool because then I get my tax person. Hey, yeah, I think it's having a monetized channel, right? Shows you've got 1,000 subscribers, your 4,000 watch hours. You guys have been awesome. So, but it's been cool. It's really cool. So, not asking for anything, but I do appreciate, you go through the ads, and some of the ads I think are pretty cool. At least I've seen a few come up. Like I'll go in and be going through older stuff. I'll be like, oh, here's one for Grip 6 socks, and I'm like, it's a wool. I kind of like wool socks, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of a neat ad. So yeah, well, this is Kurt. I appreciate it. So happy about that. Very good. Very good. Yep. Smother grease fires if you can. And, again, like I'm going back to the open house of the fire station, and they'll have the kids. Well, they can have adults too, like do the hose to knock down a pretend fire. But they don't really, I haven't seen them do the fire extinguishers. I haven't seen kind of presentations on like different types of fire. Like you could have like a kitchen there and like have, someone take their lid and put it over a pretend fire. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff we're talking about now. We just don't tell people about this. So if in the moment if they don't have the knowledge, they might do something it's not going to make them safer. But so that one for green dog treats with the snowman. This is our good friend Corey Slater in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Corey Slater. So it is Corey Slater. Everybody knows. Dun 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 dun. Corey Slater. Dun 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 dun. All right. Let's see who I'm going to be playing in the Super Bowl. Here we go. Super Bowl. Super Bowl. I won 159 to 118. So it's a really high scoring game for me. But let's check. The Meeseeks at 12-4 will play the 40 Broncos, who finished third in the league and who scored 120. So I would have beat anybody this week, even in the consolation bracket. I had the highest score in the league. So the 12-4 Meeseeks are taking on the 11-5 40 Broncos. Believe it or not. Meeseeks. So, new recipe for biscuits. Well received. Flaky layers. Ah, oh, sounds delicious. Sounds delicious. All right, Heath. Heath, appreciate you being here. So, take care, buddy. I'm going to give you a little graphics here. Da-da-da! We're going to give you a thumbs up, and we got 19. We only need one more thumbs up to get 20 here on the show. So, yes. What I had a show I was thinking about. Next time. So I was working on this today in my lecture for the university for the class, and some schools, this isn't as uncommon as you think it would be. They give away large prizes for students that have good attendance. So maybe because truancy is becoming an increasing issue. So, if you are gone up to, 3 days a semester or something, you get entered. If you have like perfect attendance, 1 or 2, 0 or 1 days, you get like 2 entries or something. And if you have like 2, you get whatever, but anyway, kids can win a car. So, what do you think about, school kids win car for attendance? So there's a lot of these out there. A lot of these articles out there. So Canyon Ridge student wins free car for perfect attendance. So there she is. This one is 2017. There's a lot of these. So, so what happens is the school will do a drawing. So it's the community, whether it's the dealership and the school's ponying up. Sometimes the school pays the whole thing for this. It might not be a brand new car, might be a used car, but let's say they pony up $25,000 for whatever this is. And the school's logic is, listen, like we're paying a truancy officer, $100,000 a year, and our test scores are getting hit, and we're losing out on open enrollment and whatever it is, all these things. They're just saying, hey, if we can do a $25,000, it's money well spent. This is the logic, right? And then usually attendance increases. So it does happen. And then you get a kid who is driving away in a new car because they only missed 1 day of school. So I know the craziness with that, right? Of people saying, you shouldn't have to be paid to like, go to school and do that. But I mean, this stuff is very, if you Google this, you'll find pages and pages and pages. So it might not, always be a car, but it's usually a bigger ticket item, big screen TV, Xbox, these systems. And the thought is, right, the analytical side saying, listen, if we put $10,000 out there in prizes, or even one saying you get $5,000 cash, so we put $10,000 out there, and it decreases truancy by 50%. We are decreasing in our truancy officer, our time out of having to fight this stuff into truancy court and all this, and hypothetically grades. You could look at that and say that sunk investment of 10,000 returned 50,000, we believe. So, but it's crazy to think that you have to put these things into play. But yeah, I had a professor who give true false examines. Those who got the questions all correct or all false got an A. Wow. I had a professor, Vanessa, who, so if you had 75 true and false, or A, B, C, D, or whatever it was, he always said, listen, if you're unsure, you can circle like 2, something like that, 2 or 3. If you circle it, I will grade it, but if it's wrong, it won't count against you. And if it's right, if it's right, you'll get it. If it's wrong, it won't count against you. I don't know exactly how that'll, but anyway, so, or if you just said, if you circle 3, I'll just throw them out. So there'd always be like 103 on the, or if you didn't circle any, you'd get the full 103, but you could knock 3 out. But anyway, there's going to be questions you're not going to have an answer for, probably, right? Or something you just didn't study. And so if you come across that, the rest of it, just circle it. But what if you do know it and you got it right, then you circled something that you would have got credit for. But anyway, that was just cool. No one had ever done that before. And I was like, that's a really cool approach for that kind of assessment, and also to decrease people's anxiety if they get to something that kind of stumps them. Be like, well, it's not going to sink the ship, So this is our good friend Man Against the Masses stopping by to offer my fresh frozen tip of a thumbs up. This is for Man Against the Masses right here. It's the thumbs up guy. Thumbs up. Look, or Facebook. Not on Facebook, but look at this. Thumbs up. Wish I could find a job where I'm paid to do nothing. It's our friend Corey Slater. Damn. A new car for perfect attendance? Forget the obvious question. Did she have to pay the taxes on that? That's why those folks who won cars from Oprah didn't get to keep that. Yeah. No, making that's a good question, right? Because you would think she would have to pay the taxes, or the family would have to pay the taxes, unless there's some quirky thing. I don't know the answer to this. Where the school district would make a payment, almost like a gifting, that could be done to offset the taxes. I have no idea. You're right, but this is a really good question. So you'd have to know that up front, right? I'm going to do a show on this, because I found it's phones, it was TVs, it was like trips to, if you're close to like amusement centers, but I don't know. I think it's kind of old schoolish, but yeah. So vehicles, e-bikes. I mean, all these things that are now that kids would actually be into. But a big thing was like gaming systems. So imagine, like, any of us, like today we're in school, and then you're in a high school of like 200 or 100, 200 kids in your class, and there's going to be 10 prizes given away for attendance every semester, and one of them's a car. 3 of them are Xboxes. The other one is is 10 pizzas from Pizza Hut certificate. I mean, all these things. And I'm not, it's not hyperbole, it's not exaggerated. This is authentic. So, does it outweigh, or is it, are you incentivizing that this is the way life is? So are you going to expect this in the workplace? Are you going to expect, oh, like I live in an apartment building with 15 other units. So out of the 16, our landlord should have 1 month that he does a random drawing, and whatever. Oh, it's number 11, tenant number 11. You get a free month of, you don't have to pay rent this month. What if they 3 times it's number 11, they have 3 months, it's almost like that type of expectation you'd extrapolate. Now people say, oh, Dave, that's crazy. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know anyone who studies that, but like I said, I attended school because it seemed like that was the thing you were supposed to do. Plus I was an athlete, so to have a good attendance, make sure you could play. But to basically, the thing is, like with this car, right? The way that they do this, it's if you don't have good attendance, it's not like you get entered in it and then the people that had good attendance are not entered into it. So it's not that, but there'll be some kids, this won't matter, right? They'll be like, well, whatever, and they'll still be gone 30 days a month. But yeah, I'll bring up some of that, but it is getting this weird approach. And what if the car doesn't work anymore? I mean, like, not that it doesn't start or doesn't run. I mean, like, what if the car's not motivating anymore? What is it then today? It's almost like a school saying, we will give you, 1/20th of a Bitcoin, and or something like that, or some. I'm just saying, like, if you actually sat down and asked kids, and a kid's like, oh, I could earn, 10 Ethereum coins. Yeah, I'd be interested in my attendance. And what that, I mean, I think this is amazing. I'm going to put that one in memory too, and bring that up in the spring class, because I think it's right on. Of now we're kind of getting into these incentive type programs, and but now, yeah, where do we go with that? And if the kids were to inform it, if the adults inform it, it's going to be like, oh, like, here you get a CD player boombox, and kids are like, I don't use CDs anymore. It's, yeah, if you get me a portable speaker that I can Wi-Fi, that might be something I'd be motivated in. But I mean, so I think it would be you'd be asking students of saying, what would motivate you? What would you attend? And I'm not saying this should even have to happen, but I'm saying the adults would come up with stuff that might be expensive, but not have any value to the kids. But the kids would come up with stuff, and it would be like, yeah, I want the indoor outdoor Bluetooth speaker. And da 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 da. It's just this crazy stuff though. But again, I think I read one of these, and I think it was this list of things, and it was stuff that obviously the adults had put together, and the kids probably wouldn't be that interested in. So, like a credit to the school store for like $100, and kids like, great. So I get like 3 more hats that have the school logo on it. I can get the, bag of Skittles for $2 or something like that. I get 50 bags of Skittles. Sunflowers is saying, I knew a woman that won a car raffle. She wanted the car, but the taxes kept her from getting it. Yeah. Absolutely. This is Sunflowers to Mike McLuhan. There's no reason to have game shows on TV anymore. What's the point? So I don't know. I haven't watched game shows in a long time. I worked with a lady who was on a game show maybe like 7-8 years ago. I think it was Price is Right. So I don't know. I used to like the whammy one. I thought that was kind of interesting. I was never a big Price is Right person. I never thought that was really, it wasn't my thing. But the whammy, and I never, Hollywood Squares never got into any of that stuff. Family Feud, nah. This is Man Against the Masses. Have you been on a substation vandalism? So I've been hearing about, just through, media, and then, people would be more informed, like in the Joe Dolio type group. Yeah, Washington State, but, seems like there's others. We had something weird here where they were telling people to cut, it was like 20 degrees below zero, and they were telling people to cut their thermostats down to like 60 to 62 because they didn't have enough natural gas. And I'm like, just things are so, these systems, well, they're fragile. They've always been fragile, but right now, man, the entropy of these systems is just beyond belief, and the vulnerability. But yeah. So anyway, that's where I look at this and say capitalism would fix a lot of this. Not that capitalism fixes things, but like somebody would invent ways to do this, or there would be enough lobbying from certain industries to get things. Because, but things just aren't getting fixed, right? The various supply chain issues, the fact that there isn't aspirin and things on the shelves at the pharmacy, and they're short on amoxicillin and stuff like that. Stuff would all be like fixed through just a pure capitalism approach. So there's more added right now. There's more interference. Taxes on prize shows are not free. To register the winning vehicle, you must pay taxes first here. So, yeah, interesting. Free gold stars if you show up for class. Mike McLuhan, same in most states. Got to pay the sales tax where you bought it. So, wow. All right, let's see here. This is Vanessa. My dad was a wartime U.S. Navy vet, yet refused to ever use VA for care. His cancer treatments would have been covered. I could never convince him to get care in Tucson, VA. This is Mike McLuhan. Mom's one uncle, Slav, dropped out of school at 15, lied about his age, got a job at the local steel mill to help support the family. There were 11 siblings. All of them was my grandma Ann. Wow. Yeah, when I shouldn't say when I grew up, but when my grandfather worked at the paper mill. And I remember back, hearing the paper mill stories of, you could drop out of school 15, 16 years old in these mill towns and go straight to the mill and be, making a good wage and benefits, right? But, you could do that at age 15 and 16. So yeah, that's interesting to kind of think about all that stuff too. I remember I worked at the cement factory. I worked when I was young. All of us here worked, but where I lived was where the industrial part of town was, like 2 blocks from my house, the lumber mill, the cement place, and all of that. The cheese factory, we were right there. And I worked at the cement factory. It was maybe 12, 13. They paid me in cash. So they just kept a running log of my hours. And they only probably paid me like $2-3 an hour. And I was stuffing styrofoam into concrete bricks for insulation. And then I also had my lawn mowing, which was around that time. But yeah, it's interesting. So it is illegal to drive without insurance, although there's a lot of people. That accident I was in was initiated by someone who had zero insurance. So then after the fact, bought insurance and tried to retroactively claim the accident. The insurance company was calling me and trying to their insurance company was trying to straighten things out. And I said, I think your client, you have an issue there. I think they got in an accident and then decided to buy insurance, which probably isn't the way that it works. So, yeah. Vanessa, Kitty, first job in the books for me was 15. My good friend Mike McClune, 15. So when I was 15, my first W-2 job was working at the swim center in town. They built the large indoor swimming pool where the elementary school used to be. And when they opened it, I was 15. I didn't have my license yet, but I was only a block and a half away, so I could walk there. And then so that was my first W-2. And I don't know how much I got paid. $3, $3.25. I mean, it's pretty, holy smokes. Look at some of those. And like things weren't cheap back then if you're a kid, because like a boombox, a CD, like the cost of those were still like a boombox was a good boombox was well over $100. A CD was $8 to $10 maybe. I mean, so like the stuff you'd be interested, like a TV, a video game, like, that was about the same cost as what it was today. Not like even inflation, like you're buying a Madden football cartridge, it's $50 then, it's $50 now. So anyway, just remember like my paychecks, like can be like, whoa, I worked 16 hours this week and after taxes, I got $38.04. Now, granted, like gas was cheap, and if you went out with your friends, $10 could get you through a night. But, jeez, capitalism solves all problems. Yeah. So I didn't think capitalism. The fact that capitalism hasn't jumped in yet, we haven't seen that. Like eggs, for example, the shortage of eggs, shortage of ibuprofen, a shortage of shortage of labor, that something hasn't been innovated to do whatever. I guess it has been. Like there's a McDonald's now that's 100% kind of just robotic, but I think maybe capitalism versus like technology and technology funding to come in and do some of these things. It just seems like this is all, there's solutions to things, right? And we're not devoting the time to the solutions. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm just saying it's really weird. There haven't been people to kind of jump in and to fix these things. So let's go back to during the pandemic. Remember, like everyone ran out of hand sanitizer, and then they just put the recipes out there, and you had like little distilleries like making hand sanitizer and stuff like that, and getting it out. Like it's right now it's just weird. Like I think things are broken beyond just a natural breaking of the system. I think it's being manipulated. There's sticks going in the spokes. So one must pay into Social Security 48 quarters to get them covered by Social Security disability insurance portion of their Social Security. Yes. And I think so much that has to be within your last like 5 years before you claim it, if I'm correct. But yes. This is Mike McClune. I would mow lawns in the summer and snow in the winter. Before that, mom and dad brought me up that if I wanted something, I had to work for it and earn it. Good, Mike. I mean, this is the thing. Um, it was the same for me. Um, I wanted when I wanted a car. I bought my grandfather's Plymouth Duster, but that was from the money that I had earned through jobs that were not outside of family. They're not family members paying me. Working the cement place, get my lawn little gig going on. I've then worked at the pool and worked at the grocery store. All these, things you do as young, as a teen and stuff like that. Then I did, I think, take out a loan from them for like $1,000, and then every paycheck I paid, I don't know, toward it, $50 or $30 toward it. And then I also had to pay my car insurance. So they had me on their policy, but then they knew the difference and they said, okay, if you want a vehicle, you have to, yeah, every month. I don't know what it was back then, but $20 a month, right? Something like that, or $30 a month. And we had it right in the kitchen inside of one of the cabinets. Open up the door and they had it taped. So then every time I made a payment, I would write the payment down, the date, and then like at the initial part, and then as it would just keep subtracting until it got down to zero for the loan, and then the other one was always just $20 a month or something for car insurance, which would probably be right about $200, $250 a year back then. But yeah, interesting. I ran a paper route. This is Vanessa. My oldest brother, I pulled a wagon, dug trenches for neighbors, mowed lawns, raked leaves, you bet. But I bet I made you appreciate the SNES that much more to you than someone that gave it to you. So, with our daughters, we've used the approach as soon as they started to get a sense of a value of money, right? So I don't know, 7, 8 years old, of, okay, we're going on vacation. Like, you have so much money that you've saved away, right? So we're going to take that and we'll give you some, but, or if they want something, right? I mean, we'll provide, clothes, or if there's like a cost to go on a class trip or something. But I mean, if you want like a certain Nike type of whatever, then that has to come out of your money. And our one daughter really hyper analyzes all her purchases. Where I even remember at Disney, she got really, and she was Disney, she was 13 back then, was, and to the point where I could see it was taking the fun out of the experience. And like, no, you want to get that shirt or you want to get whatever, don't worry about it. Like, but I was appreciative to see that in moment, a very like tempting environment right there of saying, I want this. We'll get it. Like, it's your Disney thing. So, not every dollar is meant to be saved, but I was glad to see that analytical, process go. Oh, Vanessa, I see students in college courses who never had a job or applied for any. Crazy, right? Holy smokes. One of the things that I'm noticing more with my consulting, more than, when I took 18 months off, and people I don't know if they're afraid, they're hesitant. You're not going to bill them or build them on time, right? So if I work for somebody, usually like within the week, I'm billing them out. Or if it's like something that's more progressive, it might be like every 2 weeks. Like, but like, you're always getting an invoice from me. There's the hours we agreed on, and I'll tell you, like, I just think people aren't even invoicing for their own labor. If that can be a thing, I think there's some, because I mean, especially if you're just one person, right? You got to do that. And I think people get behind, but it's weird. they mentioned somewhat. They didn't like really get into it. It's not my business anyway, but of just, and I mean, I was always boom, always on time with everything. It's not me, but the system that they're having to interface with, of just more people who, if they do hourly stuff or project stuff, if they do it, let's say they do a good job, they don't submit a bill, or like you get the bill 2 or 3 months later or something like that, or 4 months later. And it's like, well, it's just a weird thing. It's really weird. The younger generations have really dropped the ball. This is Uke, and they vote aggressively. Even most kids nowadays don't understand the value of money. It's their parents' fault for wanting to hand them everything, which I get, but having to earn things hits differently and in a more long-term kind of way. So no, you're right with that. Yes, and I appreciate that that you said that. It is the Mike Rowe, right? It's work ethic, but even like your agency and purpose, or it's just really strange. But yeah, the whole sense of money, and sometimes we can clearly see that with our kids, the kids that they hang around with, and some of it is really it's really surprising because you might know the situation, and these people, they don't have a lot of disposable income, yet they're taking these trips all over the place and whatever, and you're like, how are you doing that? Like, how are you? And of course it's debt, and not of course, but likely it's debt. And or they'll be like, we were over, and sometimes my kids would come back, they'd stay over at somebody's place, and then they'd go shopping and buy them, stuff. Not like a birthday party, like, oh, like we were out, so like, picked up this shirt that's matching, but I'm just like, I don't know, the whole awareness of money stuff. Yeah, I contemplate things quite a bit before I make decisions. That's why, for example, like owning securities and stuff like that, I just, like, I understand, but I have a hard time watching my really hard earned money have those flanks open where, it can take a dive, and you're like, come on, man. It's down, whatever. I, so careful with money. So anyway, we make our daughter pay a part for her apartment and car payment. This is Kurt. While in college, she likes to work, but as long as it doesn't get in the way of studying, I like that. I like that idea, and probably be very similar to what we'll do with our daughters. That approach. I worked through college. Sometimes I had 2 jobs. I had a assistantship, which was pretty easy. It's kind of like helping out the professor. But then I had like Menards or Fleet Farm, worked in plumbing. That was kind of my thing. So I did that, I think, for 4 or 5 years. So, but yeah, you're right. Like, you can't get to the point. Like, I knew a couple people, and it also got to be kind of like, this dude, he bought like a brand new truck. So then he had to like work 40 hours a week plus go to school to pay off this truck. And I'm like, well, you should be focused on your school part. That's your whole career right now. You didn't need this truck. And that's like when you're in school, you got to make sure you're focusing that time, or if you're getting a certain degree or a certain training. So, wow. Vanessa saying you can attempt to teach people how to learn, but it's up to that person to actually do it. Yeah, you got it. Look at Andrew. Voting should be $1 per vote. If you pay $10,000 taxes, you get 10,000 votes. So TJ Martinell, our Mountain Pass podcast, has opined a few times on where he thinks there should be some commitment to owning property, or kind of some other vesting system for voting. So, but yeah, I voting has gotten to be, right, these ads for these bigger, they're even hitting in smaller areas like for school board and stuff, but people are running thousands, and that is $1 million campaigns, not for school board, but these other state positions, millions and millions for these commercials. And it's proven to some high level of efficacy study. The more you spend, you can basically get yourself your victory, right? Yeah, through getting your name out there and billboards and all that. And not always, but I mean that. So, but if you're running whatever campaign and campaign managers, so I don't know, didn't work for me. I didn't put one sign out there though, but didn't. Yeah, crazy. So let me check here. All right. So today, so if you haven't subscribed, well, yeah, please subscribe. But yeah, hit the like button. I appreciate it. Sharing the show, posting questions. I'll answer them, but that helps the algorithm. So I appreciate that. But so yeah, bystander effect. So my takeaways from that, can I go back to, so the bystander effect is there's an emergency situation, and if there are a lot of people present, then there's not an individual who's stepping forward to help out. And the fact that this group is there inhibits the person. So, and there's three reasons why, or there's three types of bystander effect, I should say. The one is someone who's saying, okay, there's 100 people here, right? So if this person dies, I'm 1/100th responsible, because any of us could have acted. The second one is fear of being judged. Did I do this right? Should I have intervened at all? But really, yeah, you didn't use the right technique to, put pressure on a wound or something like that, or your CPR attempt, your Heimlich maneuvers. But and I think this exponentially increases with the number of cameras that are out there providing evidence that DAs, district attorneys, tend to jump on, right? If you have even if it's like a crazy angle from somewhere, and what I'm saying is someone is like thinking there's going to be all this footage of me. What if I use some very bad technique to try to help somebody? Or what if it looks in this case like I was contributed to this? I'm running up to them and I couldn't stop in time, and I ran into them, and that hurt them even more. But even if they're people, if it's only them and something's happening and they look and there's like a camera up there, a surveillance camera, that will be an inhibitor for them. Because even if it's just static surveillance, ring cameras and all this stuff, people less likely. You'd think it might be the other way around. They would say, oh, that's going to vindicate me if this does become questionable because now it's on video. But no, it's not the way it works. And number three is pluralistic ignorance. And a good way to think about this is, again, you're in that crowd of 100 people and you are like, whoa, I know I got it. This person is like, they've got this cut. They're bleeding out. Like I've got some accident they were in, and I need to go put pressure on the wound. Like that's what I have to do. That's what any of us would have to do. But you're thinking that's what I should do. But then you're looking around and you're like, well, other people aren't going up there. Maybe they know you don't do that. Again, what if there's fentanyl involved? What if this EMS is almost here? Somebody here probably called EMS, right? So EMS maybe is a minute away. So but this whole thing, but so you start to think, you talk yourself out of it really quickly. So pluralistic is, but the fact is, if you take these other people, like these 100 people, and you just individually ask them, they'll be like, yeah, I thought about getting in there and like putting pressure on the wound, or like, taking my shirt and using it to put pressure on the wound, or, whatever. And then these people, they're like, they all had similar ideas, but they felt everyone around them had already analyzed it and come up with reasons to not intervene. So like if you intervened, you obviously aren't the smart one, because you're not as smart as everyone else who figured out what they should be doing, which was nothing. Like, so you're looking, they're saying there's a reason they're not going up to them. Maybe there was like this fight, or so there was someone who just took off and they're going to come back, or but yeah, I think these are fascinating points to know, because of course they come into all aspects of safety, school safety. But yeah, very interesting. I think the one that I spent the most time on was the fear of being judged. Because I was like, okay, this is from 1968, but like really very few cameras back then. I mean, just a still photo, right? Say, but what does it look like today? And kind of, getting in the surveillance state, and the fact that, yeah, if you have your own, like Joe Doley, if you have your own recorder, your pen recorder, your own, or you have your own dash camera, or whatever, that's one thing. But what, if you're relying on somebody's Ring bell or some security camera at the side of a building to vindicate you, less likely you're going to see that and be like, oh, like this video is going to be scrutinized, versus like, because whatever your video is recording is what you're doing. You're acting in the best interest of that person or the situation. So so make the system count, or make the system count winners for the congressional races across the entire state rather than subset of districts. So our House seats are run on a district drawn weighted average, basically depending on each party control every 10 years. So, wow. All right. Good deal. Oh, there's my bike. Hey, let's bring my bike up again. So, where this was a couple years ago, but I will bike. This is a dead end road. There's a house down here. I'll usually bike to about right here. Now, over here is a railroad, like literally 300 feet over, big railroad. And then the other side, that's Wisconsin River. And up here, old farms and effigy mounds, about an eighth mile that way, 1,000-year-old effigy mounds. So anyway, this is a really nice place to just pull off, set up the bike, and eat, like right here. So, but these people up here, once in a while, they'll come down, they'll check out. I'm just grabbing something. But those are days when it's like 80 degrees and sunny, and by then I've been out for like 3 hours at least, and I'm like, just miss that. Right now, this is all snow and ice. Nothing's here. It's just cold. So, but so anyway, Staves, send me some Staves photos when you got them. If you got a timeline for me, buddy. It's almost midnight here. Ridiculously rough year. So take care, buddy. Appreciate you being here. Staves. And this is for a good friend, Uke. Yeah. It's also for Uke. Thumbs up. So Yeah. Vanessa, your shows are always a good learning experience. Well, thank you. You guys, I appreciate the chat. Like I said, you bring up a lot of great things that you know I hadn't thought about. So I'm like, I'm going to be using that. I'm going to be bringing this stuff in. So I appreciate that. All right. So dun, 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 dun. Okay. So I appreciate everybody for watching. This is show 200, believe it or not. Mike, this is episode 200 of the Safety Doc, officially 200 shows. Now we've had more, but these are shows that have a blog post, and then they also have the leveled audio. So if you go to the playlist as of tomorrow morning, it will have 200 shows in the playlist, which is really cool. Like I never thought I would be there starting out. And then I had a friend of mine, it was Hector Solis, who was a guest on the show, and he had done the typical dad podcast, and he had Crime Waves, his different podcasts he had done, but he was sharing the analytics, and he said, if you do like a show, it was something crazy. Like most shows don't get to 10 episodes, before they shut down. It was something like that. And, if you got to, there was a certain threshold, but if you got to like 100 shows, obviously it was much more likely you're going to get to 200. And then I don't know where it kind of went after that, but because you'd have your system down and, you're probably still enjoying it. But then, this burnout point too, if your channel didn't grow in a certain amount of time versus what you're putting in. So, which I think are all factors. Like, I mean, you guys have been great. The show's grown and things, which is good. Of course it's good. But anyway, like it's a great milestone because it's scholarly content and you guys have helped iron sharpen iron. But, and people, I don't talk about the show that much, although, some relatives and stuff ask about it or, they know because if they Google me, there's so many episodes, stuff like that out there. And then they'll just, when you say like you did 200 shows and then you say, well, there's a blog post and these shows are all like at least an hour, if not longer. And there's like there's topics and they're like, holy smokes. And so, and for me, I've just been like, holy smokes, like to think of 200 episodes. Wow. So yeah, 200 in the books that are actually there at safetyphd.com. And then Podbean and YouTube. And I'm not almost done. I've got to make sure I get it done here in the next few days. I got to download about 30 episodes yet that were lost to at least have those. But that's cool. People cite, if they've been on my show, sometimes they'll cite it in like a job reference or just in their professional, whatever, like they were a guest. And of course, in my books, I reference people who've been on my show. So it gets cited, gets a little bit of attention there, but it's been good in like 5 years. So it's evolved. I had Lita Kenny, the Witcher or the folk magic expert on one of my shows, man. So she was a great person, but so just a range that we've had here on the show. All right. So Corey, Vanessa, Mike, everybody take care. And, appreciate you, Bacon. So yeah, very, very much so. Cool. And Kurt, yeah. Good night to you. And night to Solitude. So I'll take us out here, guys. And I think show 201 is going to be, we're going to talk about the prizes for to curb truancy or whatever that's entitled. But I want to have, if you know an EMT, I'd like to interview someone and say, has fentanyl killed the Good Samaritan? So that's actually a good title for a book, which I'll never write because that's not my area of expertise. But has fentanyl killed the Good Samaritan? Maybe. So, all right, we're going to fly out of here.
How were the beans and chili that you had for breakfast?
They were delicious. Thank you for asking. But now I am very gassy.
I'm sorry to hear that. Who let the frogs out? Pew, that stinks very bad. I have to open the window. Oh no, my cap flew off and it was sucked into the engine.
Holy smokes, the engine just cut out. We should use the Decide model to help us make the right decision.
Mayday. Mayday. I am declaring a beans and chili emergency. Please advise for landing.
Flight 019er, 2 miles northeast. Turn left at 90. Maintain 4,800 to establish an approach.